Thank you, and I hope I'm loud enough. I'm certainly loud enough to myself. Thank you all also for coming out on a wet and weary night. I was just thinking I didn't have to come down from Dumfries to see this sort of weather. But if anyone's wondering why someone from such a faraway place is involved in looking at the buses in the Vale of Pewsey, I sometimes wonder that myself. But the reality is I've actually been working on this for about 13 years, and I've done at least 3 separate reports on the weekly bus and the successors to the weekly bus, and now the Connect to Wiltshire. And so, although I'm from far away, I am very conversant with the bus services. I even dream about them sometimes. So I was asked to do this at relatively short notice, because at the time, which was roughly the end of May, the intention was that if I could turn it around and come up with an option fairly quickly, then there was a possibility of getting it out to tender with only 2 or 3 months delay. But then the saga of hats intervened, and that's obviously set things back, because the council officers have had such a mountain of work to get through just to keep the operations running, and I think they deserve a certain amount of credit for that. And so we are where we are, that it's going to, as I understand it, that this the revised service is going to be trialled as a variation within the existing contract. Now, I think the first thing to say about the changes to the contract is that they are building on the changes that were proposed initially by the council in the consultation between March and May. And one of the things I had to stick by was that they wanted to see the same order of savings maintained as was in their option. So whilst you naturally as users will compare the service with what's happening at the moment, and you may say there are certain gaps in it, certain things that don't work, and we certainly want to hear all about those. Some of this is born out of the need for local authorities to make cost savings, and Wiltshire Council has decided on a need to make savings within the public transport unit, and so we were given this target to abide by, which was essentially not to monetize it, but to use the same level of resources as had been used on the original option. And with the exception of one late night bus, which we're saying we regard as essential for the rail link operation to work, and the evening services, which were a slightly separate question anyway, that's pretty much what we've done. The big changes, and this is where the map will come in. I'm not sure that seeing it from far away will help all that much, even though it's in colour. The big change is that instead of having circular routes anchored in Devizes for line 1 and then Pewsey for lines 2 and 3, we've replaced that with routes that operate between Pewsey and Devizes, and they operate in different ways. And then the other areas, the part of the existing line 2 area and the whole of line 3 area, are served in a slightly different way by the third bus. So what we have, and you'll see all this laid out in the consultation, we have line 1, which is buses going from Devizes to Pewsey through that green area, or the big kind of middle grey splotch on the consultation. They'll operate in two different ways at different times of day. We've got fast, direct, fixed timetable runs operating in the early morning, broadly up to 9 o'clock, and in the evening peak hour, roughly kind of 4:30, 6 o'clock. And the idea behind that is that for those times of day when the journeys are going to be predominantly journeys to work, and people want to go as quickly as possible, we will provide fixed routes, going fairly direct routes, not serving every single village in the areas, but serving most of the, well, certainly all of the big ones and as many villages as possible. They run on two separate routes. There was a little bit of confusion about this. They're all called 1A in the timetables that you have. And the A in this case means fast, direct routes. But the routes vary, as you will see from the stopping points. So there's what we call the southern route, which is it's the blue on the coloured map, and these colours don't come out at all well. But that's basically going on a southern route, out down the main road, and then in one case going down to Rushall and then up to Pewsey, and in another case it goes to Churton and then cuts through to Woodborough, and then back down through Manningford Bruce to Pewsey. So that's the southern route. There's a northern route, which is the red on the coloured map, goes out and then up to Etchelhampton, all Cannings, and along the northern side before cutting back to Woodborough, Wilcott and Pewsey. So those are the direct routes that operate in the morning and afternoon peak hours. For the rest of the day, the service is going to be, it's going to have the demand responsive element, the bookable element, where people from any of the villages within that green area can phone up and book, and then the bus can go off route. Now, the one exception to that is that to limit the number of bookings in any one day, which is the key to getting rid of the remote call centre and the kind of high-tech stuff, and that's where we see the bulk of the savings coming from by not having this remote high-tech call centre. We've made the route partially fixed through the middle. So these places with stars, Woodborough, Beechingstoke, Marden, Churton, Patney, all Cannings, Etchelhampton, they are all on a fixed route and a fixed timetable, even through that middle part of the day. So that means those places have fixed timetable services the whole time, and if you're using the bus from any of those points, there isn't a need to book it. So the bookings are then needed from places like Coaton, Horton, Allingham, Alton, Priors, Alton Barnes, Stanton St Bernard, Bottlesford, Hillcut, gosh, to name but a few. And so those areas, exactly as you have at the moment, you have the opportunity to phone and say you want to travel on the such and such bus on such and such a day. And that will be handled by a smaller, more local call centre, simply because the number of bookings are fewer and it's manageable with a much lower tech sort of booking system. So anything on the timetables where you see a kind of hash mark, that means that you can book a journey from those points exactly as you do at the moment. So that covers most of line 1. Line 2 and line 3, under this proposal and under the original council proposal, they're operated by one bus, and that creates certain problems because one bus operating those two areas means that there can't be runs going in and out of Pewsey at the same time. They're alternating, and there are also at the moment requirements for schools transport to use that vehicle. So those areas therefore are going to have a lower frequency but still a regular level of service throughout the day, and they're going to be demand responsive, I think, most of the time is the way it works out. The rationale partly is that some of the areas there are served by other bus routes, notably the X5 going from Upavon into Pewsey, and bus services going from Burbage up to Marlborough. And so there are alternative bus routes in those areas, and part of what we need to do at the moment is to find out, do those additional services, do they augment the service satisfactorily in those areas, or is it creating problems if the frequency is reduced in the way it has been? And the difference is that compared with that in this middle area of the Vale, there are no alternative bus services, so this is the only service that's being used. So that broadly and very quickly covers the lines 1 to 3. The other two elements of this, firstly the evening service, you'll see a timetable there, which it's broadly based on what happens at the moment, but again, it's up for discussion. It's put in there, it was one of the biggest concerns amongst the people of Pewsey that the evening service was going to be axed completely, and there was discussion with the council at the time, and the council said yes, we'll have another look at that, and so it is in the proposal again, as yet, where the funding would come from for it isn't identified because it's an extra over compared with the original option. But we're putting it in there as a marker that there is strong support for the evening service. We found out yesterday evening that there is strong demand for it as well. There were certain usage levels that I wasn't aware of from looking at the passenger data that I've seen. And there was somebody talking about, in fact the person's here tonight, about 12 people using that service on a Saturday evening to get from Pewsey to Uphaven on a regular basis. Now, if you've got that level of demand for a service, then you've got the beginnings of a strong justification for maintaining it. Exactly how that service is going to look is based on a number of variables. Some will be what you tell us you use it for at the moment, and another angle of it is that the Pewsey campus is going to be coming into being in the not too distant future, and that may well create additional demands for travel in the evening. Well, it's almost certain to create additional travel demands in the evening, and so isn't it the question of how that's incorporated. The one thing we are proposing to do that's a diminution of the service compared with at the moment is that the data showed that it was very, very little used on Mondays and Tuesdays and the early part of the week. So we're proposing that it would operate Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. At the moment, it's not showing that the existing service to Devizes on Saturday is retained, but that again is open for district. I mean, everything in here is open. We do say right at the start that this is a time where changes can still be made if the demands are identified, and it's up to you to let everybody know what those demands are. So if we find there is a big head of steam for the evening service from Pewsey to Devizes on the Saturday, then we can consider incorporating that much as it is at the moment. The third element's the rail link, and I had a certain amount of a suggestion yesterday that the whole thing is geared around the rail link, that the rail link's what this is really all about, and everything else is just kind of a bit of window dressing. Now, I can assure you that emphatically is not the case. The case says that, right, somebody thinks that it is, so we're going to have a very interesting discussion. I'll tell you why it isn't. The impetus behind this, which goes right back to my very first report in 2001, is that the problem with the circular routes was that you could live somewhere that was a 7 or 8 minute journey from Pewsey or Devizes, and regardless of where you lived on the circuit, the round trip took an hour. So if you lived 7 minutes away on the inward route, it then took you 53 minutes to get home. And the impetus behind the idea of putting the linear route between Devizes and Pewsey was that from any one place, the inbound and outbound journey would be exactly the same. So no matter where you live in the Vale, your inward and outward journeys are going to be, broadly speaking, the same. And that's the reason why there are linear routes between the two. Now, where the rail link comes into it is that having a linear route from Devizes to Pewsey makes it a lot easier to integrate a rail link service. There's been a rail link service for many years. There was a time up to, I think, 2009 where there were 3 morning services connecting with the trains at the back of 7, the back of 8 and 10:18, I think it was. And that service was reduced, I think, to one service in 2009 because at the time it was running under a very high cost system through as a taxi bus, and it was seeing spectacular growth, but it was cut back anyway. And the other problem with the rail service throughout this period is that the return journey involved interchange at Beechingstoke to get back to Devizes. So having the linear service between Pewsey and Devizes, which is primarily for the benefit of the people getting from the villages into one or other of the towns, the big advantage that unlocks is that it can also provide a very efficient direct service to Pewsey Station.